Hi, this is Tom Delk. I'm the chaplain at Normandy Farms Estates up near Philadelphia. It's good to be here with you today. And I just want you to know, in case you weren't aware of it, this is the 9th day of the season of Easter. We often don't think about that. We think about Advent and Lent as time when there are days, but there are actually 50 days in the season of Easter. And I think that's a good thing because, you know, it takes a while for the Easter message to sink in. This idea that death has been really destroyed by the death and the resurrection of Jesus Christ, it's a little bit mind-blowing. In fact, it's a lot mind-blowing. The story I'd like to read you today the account is from the 16th chapter of the Gospel of Mark. And this is how it reads. When the Sabbath was over, Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James, and Salome brought spices so that they might go and anoint Jesus' body. Very early on the first day of the week, just after sunrise, they were on their way to the tomb, and they asked each other, "Who will roll the stone away from the entrance of the tomb?" But when they looked up, they saw that the stone, which was very large, had been rolled away. And as they entered the tomb, they saw a young man dressed in a white robe, sitting on the right side, and they were alarmed. "Don't be alarmed," he said. "You are looking for Jesus, the Nazarene, who was crucified. He is risen. He is not here. See the place where they laid him? But go, tell his disciples and Peter, he's going ahead of you into Galilee, and there you will see him, just as he told you." Trembling and bewildered, the women went out and fled from the tomb. They said nothing to anyone because they were afraid. This is a remarkable story, of course. It's the story of the resurrection. What we have in Mark, at least this first scene of the resurrection, is the shortest one in the New Testament. And what we find at the very end of it in verse 8 is that the women who first witnessed the empty tomb were bewildered, and they were scared, and they were trembling, and they fled from the tomb. And it says here that they didn't tell anyone. Well, obviously they eventually did tell someone because, after all, we've actually heard this story. But what I think is remarkable here, and I think so important for us, it took a while for this to sink in. They eventually did decide to go and tell the disciples and tell Peter what had happened and what they had seen. Still, it took a while for everyone to believe it because it's astonishing, isn't it? They had seen this man die, and with him, their hopes. But now everything had been turned on its head, and for a while now, they're not really sure what's happened. The grave is empty. There's a young man in a white robe, obviously an angel, and even though this angel looks relatively non-scary compared to most angels, he still scares them. They run away, but then they come back. And they do what the angel says. Here's just a couple things that I noticed here in this passage. And I think this is probably the most important one. And it has to do with, how do you encounter the risen Jesus right now? They hadn't encountered him yet. But the angel said, "Go back to Galilee. Tell the disciples, and there you will see him." He said, "Go tell the disciples and Peter that he goes ahead of you into Galilee." First of all, there's some restoration for Peter that you can't really get by. After all, he did deny Jesus 3 times. But I think what's really significant is he tells them to go back to encounter Jesus in the place where they met him. And what I've noticed is that people that seem to have a regular encounter with Jesus, no matter what age they are, just met a 80-something guy the other day who had just come back from a retreat, and he said, Tom, I've got to tell you about this because I got a chance to pray with a couple people who really found a unique personal relationship with Jesus. It seems to me that when we encounter that risen Jesus, where it really, really begins to sink in, is when we are doing what he's doing. When we meet him where he is, reaching out and drawing people to himself. You have a great day. Go tell someone.